welcoming me onto your screens or onto your headphones, depending on you're watching this. I'm Eddie, and this is the Rollback. Folks, I'm going to talk today about Creed 3, aka, talk out your feelings? So the synopsis. While still dominating the world of boxing, Adonis Creed looks to step away. He looks to retire, step away from the world in a more managerial role. However, at the same time, an old childhood friend by the name of Damian Anderson. Anyway, his old childhood friend comes out and some old wounds are opened up and the two are kind of set on a collision course. And it gets personal real quick, with Donnie having to come out of retirement after 3 years to settle a very personal score in the ring. So pros, where should the praise start? For his directorial debut, Michael B. Jordan does a fantastic job. He's a triple threat now. I don't know if he helped write this film, but I know he helped to direct it. And, well, he did direct it and he starred. And he brings so much energy and emotion and passion to this role. This film, Creed films typically hang on Michael B. Jordan. He is the central character after all, but the whole story is based around him and all the emotion. Also, I want to point out the anime inspiration is very clear and I love it. The slow motion boxing sequences where he notices things here and there. In particular, in the last fight, there's a really good, gut shot that Damian lands on Donnie that makes sweat actually fly from the back because of how hard it hits. That's all anime inspired, and that is interesting, and personally, I liked it. People who are used to traditional boxing films might not love the way everything looked, but it's refreshing. You can't have 3 boxing movies in a row and have every single one have the same kind of fight. You got to change things up a bit somewhere, somehow, and this film, I think, did a good job doing that. Also, the whole portion with Donnie and his family and how things are getting complicated. Now him and Bianca have a daughter. He has a future he needs to protect, her that he needs to protect. Watching Donnie be a parent is interesting and rather entertaining, seeing, and it's somewhat rewarding because you see this young kid from Creed 1 who came up from, I don't want to say nothing, but in boxing world, he was fighting in he was fighting in amateur fights in Tijuana, Mexico. And for him to go from that to world champion to raising his daughter, it's a nice character arc and character growth, obviously mirroring Rocky. In addition to that, though, him and Bianca's relationship is more layered. You see, they clearly have each other's back. There's never a question of, do they love each other? The question is, how does this relationship go from here? Or how's it complicated? And it's understandable. Donnie has some stuff in his past he still hasn't brought up to Bianca, stuff that he doesn't want to deal with, which is, I can say this, it's understandable. You don't always want to open those wounds, but sometimes you don't have a choice. I really did enjoy the extra backstory we got of Donnie as he grew up. You see, just because he got adopted by Creed's wife doesn't necessarily mean, Marianne? Yeah, Marianne. Just because he got adopted by Marianne doesn't necessarily mean that his life was all sunshine and rainbows. He was still going out, being I don't want to say a stupid kid, but he was hanging out with his friends, and I can understand that. He was like the little brother to Damian. They were brothers, pretty much. Growing up in a group home, they protected each other, they defended each other. And that's where the tragedy in the story comes in an event that's heartbreaking, and you can understand why it is. There's great shots in the film where you see both of them as kids boxing each other and then them as adults. These two people that were almost destined to see each other again. These unfortunate wounds that never healed. Into what a lot of people are also really excited for is Jonathan Majors playing Damian, opposite Michael B. Jordan, and he eats the role up in every way. He feels menacing. He feels like a legit threat. And after 2 films of Donnie overcoming the odds, it's hard to build up a new opponent that makes you wonder, well, what can this guy do? He feels like Donnie's Clubber Lang, but with a more personal touch of they grew up together, they were brothers. Also, there's an argument there to be made that because he's more fresh, he hasn't been... I doubt Damian was boxing a lot in the prison. That said, I doubt he has that many concussions, that much wear and tear on his body, so he's fresh. So Donnie's fighting, admittedly, someone who's older, but someone who's fresh, probably stronger, someone who is angry, someone who just hates the world, and understandably so. He got a raw deal in the matter. But Jonathan Majors brings so much to this role, so much raw emotion. There's a scene, and I pointed out to Fernie when we watched the film, and I'll point it out to anyone that'll listen to me. in the trailer, when Donnie tells him, come by the gym, and John the Major says, thank you. I've never seen so much menace in a thank you. I've never seen so much emotion in a thank you. Like, there's anger there. There's fuck you, you're living my life. There's gratitude. There's happiness because I'm seeing an old friend of mine. Like, there's so much there. And props to John the Majors for him being able to do that. So the last fight is obviously amazing. It starts off with a normal boxing match, but the trash talk also feels personal. There's at one point where at the round ends, and Damien says, I'll see you soon, and Adonis responds, I'll be back in a minute. Like, it's those little moments right there where it's touching. It's two rivals, smack talking each other. You never really saw that in the other fights. Yes, there was smack talk, but this feels more personal. This feels almost anime inspired, like trash talk between Goku and Vegeta almost. Also, there's a stylized portion of the fight where I think they go from round 3 to like round 11, and it all takes place in one shot. But you see, like, the crowd goes away, everyone goes away, and it's just these two guys trading punches, going to war with each other. Donnie has his back against the wall at one point to prison bars, and they're just swinging on each other left and right. And inevitably, obviously, Donnie does win. He fights through Damien and wins back the world championships. I'm going to assume he's going to vacate them, but that's not where the real story ends. The story ends after Donnie wins. I can't help but feel bad for Damien, because in any other story, he would be the hero. In any other story, a guy who went to jail comes out in older age, he's too old to be a boxer, gets a 1 in a million shot. It's a reverse Rocky. In theory, Damien is the hero in most stories, except this one. But after the fight, Donnie goes to visit him. They talk in the locker room, and they work their shit out, talking, I'm here whenever you need me. And I think that's a perfect opening for Creed 4, which I'm going to assume is going to go in one of two ways. Either Donnie is going to train Majors maybe and help him, and maybe that's his role as more of a Mickey type, because I don't know what they can really do from here. Or, where I think they're going to go, is Donnie is going to train his daughter to be a boxer, an amateur boxer. I think that's a pretty solid way to go, but we'll have to see to find out. But yeah, great film all the way through. Now, that said, there are a few cons I do want to bring up. The chief criticism I saw from a lot of people online is the writing is a little formulaic. Like, you kind of know where it's going, which, I mean, that's true, but to quote Chris Jericho, just because you can kind of telegraph it doesn't make it a bad thing. It just means that's the right direction to go for the story. Like, if the story going to the final fight, Majors knocks Adonis out in the first round, and then the movie ends, would people have been happy about that? I don't think so. That's another direction to go if you want to break the formula. But what about this? What if Donnie ends up getting injured and Drago takes his place, and then it becomes Drago versus Damien in that fight with Donnie in Drago's corner? Is that a better way to go? Like, it's formulaic, but what do you want? Like, there's only so many ways you can go around it. If anything, I'm happy that Donnie only had 2 fights in this movie rather than like 3 or 4. I mean, that's just me, maybe. In addition to that, I do know another big compromise, or one thing I didn't like about it was the timeline, because if Creed takes place in 2015 and then Creed retires in 2017, that means he was only on top of the boxing world for 2 years. Is that enough to stake your claim as one of the greats of all time if you're only on top for 2 years? I don't know. I might be wrong. Donnie is injured. He has wear and tear. They do try to build that up during the training montage, that you have scar tissue here, you have this, you have this, you have this concussion. Trying to make Donnie feel like more of an underdog, but I don't really think they needed that aspect. Maybe he just wants to retire early because he wants to, preserve himself for his kids. He wants to be around for a long time, and that includes him taking care of his body. And maybe that's okay. That's a fine avenue to go down. Lastly, the final fight, there's one thing that bugs me there. The fact that they sped through about 8 rounds worth of boxing. I wouldn't have minded if they had kept going, because also they look like they just walked out of round 3 going to the last round. Whereas in other films, Donnie has a lot more battle damage. And I kind of wish they had gone that way. Either have that sequence be very drawn out to skip over the 8 rounds, or add the battle damage to be like, fuck, they worked through this. Like, they've been fighting nonstop. And they're maintaining their momentum. Or, as you look at other ones, The longevity of the fight plays a factor. Fatigue begins to play a factor. Wear and tear, broken ribs, broken hands, Donnie being concussed. Like, these things play a factor. They're all storytelling elements, which are a good thing to use. Maybe going to the well or going a different direction. That one part bothered me. They skipped 8 rounds of boxing. There's a lot of story to tell. There's more meat on that bone. That said, final grade, it's an A. I would say probably the original Creed's the best of the trilogy, but I want to be very clear. This is a very high bar for a trilogy. It's like the Dark Knight trilogy. It's very good. Like, there's not a stinker in the bunch. None of them are mediocre. They're all good to great films. Very clear. If we get Creed 4, awesome. If we never get Creed 4, awesome. Either way, I truly believe that this story is well told and maybe not a bad way to finish up the Rocky franchise. Could they go somewhere in the future? Possibly. Maybe Donnie's an old man training a new young kid and he's imparting the lessons that Rocky taught to him. Maybe Michael B. Jordan could be in Sylvester Stallone role in 20 years or so. But that said, what did you think of the film? Have you seen it yet? Go ahead and comment down below. Also, do us a favor, like and subscribe. Try to support the channel. We'd really appreciate that as well. Also, there's a link down to the podcast. We just released it yesterday. So go check out the podcast as well. You get to see more in-depth thoughts from me, Chema, and Fernie. That's it. That's going to wrap it for this episode. Please like, subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. I think I said this already. Bye, everyone.